Holy sh**. Mahoraga is back, and not only is he back, but he's fighting against the strongest alien. This is probably the most hyped chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo ever, and so yeah, let's just get into it because there is a lot to talk about. Okay, so chapter 15 of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, it begins with Yuka, and, you know, she's not doing too well. She has the brain cancer, which is still kind of insane that she has brain cancer. Like, that is not something you expect to see in this series. But anyway, Yuka is not doing well. She has a headache, she's losing her vision, she's even using a wheelchair. Like, she is not in a good place. Despite that, she was still the one chosen to fight against Deborah, and in case you haven't been keeping up with the series, essentially the humans are going to fight against the aliens to decide who gets control of Tokyo. On the alien side, you have Deborah, who is a threat equal to Sukuna, it seems like, and on the human side, the strongest fighter they had was Yuji, but because Yuji is kind of missing right now, Yuka was the next best thing. Up until now, there were a couple theories about why they chose Yuka, and, you know, just like I said in my previous video, she has the 10 shadows, or at least it was the only thing that to me made sense, because obviously she has the Zenin genes from Maki, and also she's displayed quite animalistic traits. You know, when she was first introduced, she had the claws on her arms. Now, naturally, when we saw that, I didn't think she had the 10 shadows straight away, because, you know, this didn't look like we've never seen anyone use it in this specific way. But it was always there as a possibility, and now we get confirmation she has access to the 10 shadows. Now that we know that, it kind of makes sense why they would choose her. And I just had a quick theory, because we know that one of the 10 shadows is this deer. It's called Round Deer, and it has the ability to provide reverse curse technique. So to put it another way, it can heal the user. So I'm thinking, she has brain cancer, she has the 10 shadows, why was her main priority not taming Round Deer? If she tamed Round Deer, then she'd have access to all this reverse cursed technique or reverse cursed energy. My only assumption is that reverse curse technique doesn't work against brain cancer, but I don't know how I feel about that, because imagine if Sukuna had brain cancer. Do you think he would just lay down and die? No, he'd probably heal himself using reverse curse technique. And so why was her main priority not taming Round Deer, getting access to that reverse curse technique, and then healing herself? I don't know. I don't know if it's a plot hole or not. You guys let me know in the comments down below what you think. But from where I'm sitting, I feel like reverse curse technique should heal brain cancer. And if that's the case, then Yuka should have unlocked Round Deer and fixed this whole situation. Anyway, getting back to the chapter, we see that she's on a plane at this moment, and essentially what they're going to do is they're going to fly a plane over Tokyo, and then Yuka is going to parachute out of the plane. Well, I say parachute, she doesn't actually have a parachute, but she's gonna jump out the plane and then basically go to fight Deborah. Now, while she was on the plane, we have a couple moments of her reminiscing about her childhood, and the first thing that's interesting is that she says that during her childhood, Tsurugi wasn't really the best brother. There were moments where they'd be play fighting and he would go too hard on her. There were moments where he basically would cheat in video games and do all those things that you expect an older brother to do. You know, he wasn't the nicest person to her. And she's thinking that if she's reincarnated, she hopes that next time she gets to be the older sister so that she can do everything that he didn't do. She's going to, you know, she's going to go easy on him. She's basically going to do all the things that he didn't do as a brother. Now, this is kind of sad, and it does help to explain their relationship a bit, because if you remember, during the early chapters, there was a moment where Tsurugi was captured. And if you remember, Yuka didn't really care. You know, Maru was the one who wanted to go and save Tsurugi. Meanwhile, Yuka didn't really care. I mean, I think there was one moment where she even said, like, you know, if he dies, he dies, pretty much. You know, not the exact same phrasing, but she pretty much said that. So their relationship hasn't always been the best. And so, you know, maybe this resentment that she had towards him, maybe it's because of the way he treated her as a child. I'm not saying he was abusive or anything, because clearly they do have love for each other. It's just that he wasn't the perfect older brother that maybe she wanted. Now, in Tokyo, Deborah was just standing around waiting for the chosen fighter of Earth to show up, and the first person who shows up is not Yuka, but instead it's Wee Wee. At this point in the timeline, Wee Wee is in his 80s, and I'm just gonna say he looks terrible, but he also looks like his body is sort of like Wilson Fisk, like just really, really wide, but his hairstyle is like May. So yeah, he just looks super weird. I mean, I'm not going to show it on screen because of copyright and stuff, but just know he doesn't look right. He doesn't look like the person that we knew. Wee and Deborah then have a brief conversation, and during this exchange we find out that Deborah doesn't know who he's meant to be fighting. He just says to Wee, "Are you the chosen warrior?" And Wee just says, "No, I'm just an old person." Now you're probably wondering, why is Wee even here? What is he doing? And from the interaction, what we find out is that Wee is excited to see a battle between two strong creatures. Wee grandchildren have never seen true strength. They've never seen someone on the level of a Gojo, a Sukuna, or even a Yuji apparently. So this fight between Deborah and whoever's going to face him, that will show these grandchildren what true strength is all about. Now, I should point out that when we look at Wee's grandchildren, one of them looks exactly like him when he was a child, and another one looks exactly like Mei. This is really bizarre looking. Like, they all dress the same way that Wee himself used to dress. But yeah, like I said, Wee is not fighting. He just came to say hi and just to say that, this fight should be on par with what they experienced during the Culling Games back in the day. Following that, Yuka then rolls out of the plane, and when I say rolls out, I literally mean it, because she's in a wheelchair and she just rolls out on her wheelchair. And as she's falling down, the wheelchair then kind of separates and breaks apart, and she's just falling down. No parachute, no nothing. However, despite looking like a dangerous moment, this is actually the moment where she proves that she's a lot smarter than Megami. Because in this moment, she not only summons Mahoraga as she's falling down, but then as she's about to hit the ground, she then basically opens up a shadow and falls into the shadow. So she hides in the shadows from Mahoraga. By contrast, Megami summoned Mahoraga and then immediately got killed. But, just like Yuka did, he could have hidden in the shadows as well. This is the smartest thing to do, objectively. As Yuka then falls into the shadows, Mahoraga lands immediately on top of where she was. And so, at this point, it's just Mahoraga and Deborah. Of course, Deborah has no idea what Mahoraga can do, I guess similar to Sukuna when he first met Mahoraga. And so, just to be safe, Deborah activates his curse technique. This technique is one of the most powerful in the entire series, and it essentially has two elements. So the first element is that he can manipulate light, so he can shoot light out of his hands and just manipulate it. And the second element is something that in the spoilers, it doesn't actually have a name. The name is kind of blank, and the chapter actually says that humans have no way to articulate what this thing is, right? So it's very hard to describe. But essentially, in the Deskunte clan, which is the clan that Deborah is from, they have this thing that's passed down, which is basically pure killing intent, right? So murderous intent, but manifested as a real object. So it's killing intent, but it's given mass. So it's a mass that wants to kill you. And Deborah, his technique, allows him to combine light with that killing intent. So it basically combines to create, I guess you could say, lightsaber type of material. Either way, this is the best I could describe it. But Deborah shoots out about 1,000 lightsabers out of his hand. And these cut through Mahoraga. Mahoraga is getting, in this panel, it looks like he's getting one shot, but he does actually survive. I will say though, these lightsabers mess him up pretty badly. We see that they pierce through Mahoraga very, very easily. But as we know, Mahoraga has been through this before. Sukuna did a very similar thing to him, and he was fine, The only time that Mahoraga was really hurt during his whole battle with Sukuna was when he got hit with the flame arrow that disintegrated him. That was the only time where he got one shot. Prior to that, he got hit with Dismantle, he survived it, and he just kept adapting. And in this chapter, we see that after he's hit with Deborah's light, he starts adapting, he starts healing. So for the first time in history, he's adapting to a technique from outer space, basically. He up until this point, Mahoraga's dealt with all sorts of things probably over the centuries, but he's never dealt with something that is not of this world. And even in this situation, he's still able to adapt. That just shows you how overpowered this Shikigami is, but the real question is, will he win this fight? And honestly, it purely depends on Deborah's battle IQ, right? Because we've seen in the past, truly elite fighters like Sukuna and Gojo, both of them have one-shot Mahoraga, alright? So fighters on that level should be able to deal with this threat, because they should have an attack that can destroy him in one go. Now, when it comes to Deborah, does he have the IQ to realize what's going on here? Will he realize that Mahoraga is adapting to his technique, and will he switch things up? If we think about this story so far, it's pretty clear that Jujutsu Society, they thought that Yuji is the only one who can beat Deborah, okay? So if they were saying those things, clearly in the back of their minds, Mahoraga wasn't like their number one option, right? If Mahoraga was guaranteed to win, then clearly, they wouldn't need to find Yuji. the fact that Yuji was the #1 option that they had implies to me that Mahoraga might not be able to deal with this threat. Don't get me wrong, I think the fight will still be good, and I hope it lasts for a few chapters at least, but ultimately, will Mahoraga win this? Narratively, I doubt it, because we need Yuji to come in. It's the same problem that we had with the Gojo fight, because when Gojo was fighting Sukuna, yes, we all wanted Gojo to win, but narratively, he couldn't win. It wasn't allowed to happen, because had Gojo won in that moment, what of the main character? You know, what would have Yuji done? What would Yuji have done? Narratively, Gojo had to lose to allow Yuji to take the stage and allow other people to have their moments. So in that same vein, Mahoraga, as much as I would love him to win this battle and defeat the aliens, it's not going to happen like that. As much as we might want it to happen, it's not going to happen. He is eventually going to lose this, and Yuji does have to make an appearance at some point. He's been foreshadowed way too much to not make an appearance. So all I can say is just enjoy the ride, enjoy what's about to happen, and don't have any expectations that Mahoraga is going to win. It will be a good fight, but Mahoraga is not winning this. This chapter has definitely given us a lot to think about, so let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think of Deborah's technique? Also, what do you think of Yuka having the 10 shadows? This is something that I kind of, you know, I threw it out there during one of my previous videos, but to see it actually happen, it is pretty cool. But I do wonder, why was she not more active with it, you know? Because up until this point, she'd been using it in a very not so powerful way. So I'm wondering, why doesn't she use the dogs more often? Why doesn't she use all these Shikigami that are at her disposal? You know, it's interesting to think about. Hello, sorry about that. My camera got way too hot and I think it just overheated, so it stopped working. But anyway, all I was going to say is thank you guys so much for watching, and until the next one, peace out.